Thanks for joining me today here, John. It's great to have you. Great to finally get together to talk about some of the challenges that we've been solutioning together within our asset-intensive industries within energy resources and industrials. So thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here. You know, we've been having an ongoing conversation now for 4 or 5 years now around asset-intensive industries. So I'm glad to be here. Look forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Glad to have you, and hopefully this is the first of many that we have together.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how we got here. To your point, we've been chatting for the last 4 or 5 years and really starting to see in industry the forward momentum, the pickup that we're seeing on them really starting to digitally transform where they were, you know, let's say 10 or 15 years ago. And when we first met in our journey, we talked about how it was so interesting that this particular industry, even though it has some very forward-looking technologies that they use, for example, to extract minerals and oil, for example, or power our grid, there still hadn't been the level of transformation around their products and assets that we've seen in, say, other industries, such as aerospace, for example, or automotive. And we, at that time, commented how there's a great opportunity to take those systems and the learnings that we have had on digitizing those other industries and helping to accelerate our asset-intensive and energy-oriented industries. So maybe we can chat about some of the challenges that we've seen our clients face and really starting to address the digitization that they're embarking on.
You know, as recently as a trip I just came back from, one of the challenges that we saw 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even today is what a lot of clients call a competency shortfall. And they see that a lot in the field. So 10, 15 years ago when I was in the field, again, that challenge was there. We overcame it by throwing more people at problems. Everything was paper and pen. A lot of human error was introduced into the data. Yeah. So, you know, we're still finding that it's a bit of a challenge even now, but it's changing rapidly. I mean, you know, COVID, the smile you find out of that frown was it really did force people to look at digital in a disaggregated workforce. And so it really was a bit of a springboard for us in these asset-intensive industries.
Absolutely. And to our point, that was about 4 or 5 years ago, right? Where our clients really started going digital first in how they're working. And when we think back about how our asset-intensive industries have grown in the last, let's say, 20 or 30 years, many of them have grown from an M&A basis, right? We've had huge mergers of many of the both integrated oil companies as well as major power over the years. And so they've had not only a lot of paper, right? But they've also had fragmented systems that have been pieced together over legacy mergers and acquisitions over the years. And so to really take their digital journey to the next level, we're seeing them really say, okay, how do we get this data to a point where we can start having it talk to each other, really, and take those systems to the next level where we're not having 20 different asset systems or 15 different asset systems serving the same purpose in the organization. We're really looking at one large enterprise-based solution connecting that data.
Yeah, the federated systems that they're inheriting as we're seeing this kind of ongoing consolidation globally, there's a bit of a path they have to get on. The first thing they have to really consider is how to configure all of that, right? So what you're talking about is, how do I take an inventory of all of the data I have? And of course, you know, we've talked over the years about how do you cleanse that data? How do you get your arms around it so that it's something that's traceable and reliable? And then how do I connect it all together, right? That whole integration strategy. So there's that foundation. I mean, we'll end up talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are all of the buzzwords and the headlines that we see every day today. But you're right, the challenge though is, first, it's with your organization. First, it's with your data strategy, but you have to have a culture closely married to your data strategy. Without a data strategy, you don't have an AI strategy.
And our customers want to have that ML and that AI lift to their business, but they have to first start with those fundamentals.
That's right.
And so really starting to see them start on that journey and looking at those fundamentals has been really important. And I'll say it's been interesting also, we, as practitioners in this industry from a digital perspective, have had to adapt our services and our products to really reflect the process-oriented industries. The fact that these are not, it's not discrete manufacturing.
Right.
It is continuous process or batch manufacturing. And we're talking about molecules here in many places and not parts, right? So we have to really also adapt the technology, and we've had to adapt our business processes to reflect how different this industry is as it embarks on its digitization journey overall.
Well, and the interesting thing is, in one of the last downturns we had in latter half of 2014, beginning of 2015, in the oil and gas industry, because of the trouble we had to remain profitable in the lean times, if you will, you had a CEO of a major energy company come out in 2015. And they said, we have got to adopt a manufacturing mindset when it comes to capital projects and capital investments. So it has been ongoing now for some time that the discrete industry has held lessons that we need to glom onto and bring into the process industry. And I've got to say, our conversation and our alliance here, Deloitte and Siemens working together, we've been addressing that. And I'm real excited about what we're rolling out together now.
Absolutely. And being able to bring chemical engineers, those have worked in the fields, right? And really have them adopt their learnings to how to create a digital first product for this industry, I think has been one of the key wins that we've been working through with our alliance as well. And to your point, not only did the downturn from an asset perspective require us to take these learnings from discrete from an asset perspective, same holds true from a product perspective as well. So now, compared to 15 years ago, we're demanding higher margins on those products. And theretofore, we have to create them in a digital first way to create a faster time to market and create higher product margin opportunities.
100%. I just returned from the Middle East where I had a client that was sharing with me, for every 1% in better product, better yield that I can get, the kind of revenues that represented to them. So to your point, this whole journey from molecule to this, to as you would say, from molecule to markets, as I say, molecule to margin, that journey to the financial results of the digital investments, it's imperative right now in process.
Molecule to money is everything, right?
Absolutely.
And it's helping our clients figuring out how to capitalize it. One of the big things that we often talk about as far as the drivers for the changes that we're seeing in industry is the overall customer expectations. So oftentimes I've framed them back to you in what I call a golden triangle. So we talk about our product data, our asset data, and our customer data being very tightly woven together. And this was fueled, we've often identified, from the online shopping revolution, where now, in the non-work world, let's say, right, the non-industrial world, we can go online, place something in our shopping cart, get it to us at exactly when we want it, and track it all the way to us. So our clients are also seeing similar expectations amongst their end users as they are bringing their own products to market. So even in the business to business world, it's no longer acceptable for them to just say, hey, you'll get it next week. They have to be able to track that end product all the way until receipt and delivery. And so it's really that online shopping experience that's helped to transform that overall data triangle, if you will, and create and reinforce that digital thread that we often talk about and is the basis of many of your products in the accelerator.
Yes. Yeah. The ability to take your enterprise resource planning, to provide traceability and transparency over that supply chain, all the way from the laboratory to the factory floor, be able to have scale from the laboratory to the factory floor, and then be able to be responsive to customers' needs, both in collapsing a timeline, the kind of customizations they need, All of that expectation is there now today. 5, 10 years ago, very different world. But you're right. Again, to go back to COVID, it really was an accelerant in expectations of what to get from digital. And it has transformed our supply chain.
Absolutely. And now they want to go from molecule to monetization overnight. And so we have to bring those data pieces together in order to effectively address that.
And,
situation.
we often use the term model-based systems engineering. And I've gone so far as to say that it's model-based financial optimization now. So if I've got this digital frontier, this digital investment that I've made as a company, I need to understand its direct impact on my balance sheet. Back to your point, that transparency and traceability around the supply chain is naturally going to drive visibility around your financial performance. So there's an expectation that for every dollar of digital that I invest in, what's my return on that investment? That capital that I've employed, what is that return? And so we have to have those conversations, not just with chief data officers or VPs of engineering, but with chief financial officers.
I agree. And many of our clients are seeing their transformations pay for themselves because they've identified those areas throughout their business processes, to your point, that are inefficient or that can be digitally enabled, and they can step away from what used to be very manual processes, including in when we take their digital twins of some of these end use systems, let's say, or end use assets. So whether that's an engine in an automotive world or an aerospace world where we're testing a new material and how that will respond in space or in the air under extreme conditions, we're able to do a lot of that digital validation and digital testing in a way that's saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars than when they used to do that physical testing. And so that's an area where we've been able to close that loop, if you will, or make that more intimate connection between their product data, there's customers' data, as well as the asset data, and really bring that together.
In referencing expectations from online shopping, we now can look at an object in situ, if you will, virtually, and so forth. That same expectation now exists where when you make an order and you're going to bring that product out, can I visualize it in context? Can I take the high fidelity mechanical design, superimpose it upon the scans and the photogrammetry that I have of the existing facility and understand its performance and in a reliable means where I see the digital twin's performance and I know that's what I'll get from the physical reality. So it takes high performance computing to make that happen. That's where you're seeing the investments. That's what's exciting.
It's a very exciting time to be part of our industry and really see our clients embrace some of the change that's coming. I think when we look back 10 or 15 years ago, there was a desire, but to be honest, even our systems from a software provider and from a systems implementer perspective weren't fully mature in the way that we would adopt, some of these accelerators, these new systems, whether that's a PLM system, whether it's an updated ERP or EAM system. It's really been in the last 10 years or so that we are taking the learnings that we are bringing in the process-based industries and applying it to those software-based systems. And I think we are primed to address this problem in a very substantial way. So Siemens brings to the table all of their infrastructure and energy efficiency experience that you bring in typical asset-intensive industries. And on the Deloitte side, many of our teams in this space are made up of chemical engineers and mechanical engineers that have spent time out in the field on chemical plants or in refineries and really bring the distinct knowledge to help solve these business problems as well as these solution-based problems and how to enable their data in a way that is really helping catalyze our success in industry.
Well, Siemens is really patient zero for manufacturing. We were a manufacturer for many years. I mean, we made products and, many years ago had the forethought to then find ourselves investing in the digital space, to see that as our future. And so with those roots in manufacturing, we understand the challenges. And so working with Deloitte, we have a very differentiated, a distinct opportunity in the market to represent value, both from a company with roots in what are the challenges on the factory floor, in the field, and an organization that truly understands change management and what it takes to bring those two together. A great digital strategy will give you an AI strategy, but you've got to have a transformation strategy around your organization. What a great relationship.
Oftentimes we speak about some of the Achilles heels of these transformations being integrations or foundational data. That again goes back to the intimacy that we were just describing in the golden triangle of product, asset, and customer data, as well as the proliferation of those data points that we see throughout an organization. So when you think about how many people in your organization touch product data, or how many people in your organization touch the asset data, to your point also, it's that you were making earlier, it's about how we set those individuals in the organization up to become stewards of this change for their future transformation, or stewards of how we're thinking about our businesses in the new industry that we're setting ourselves up for in the future of our process industries.
Yeah, there's a why that needs to be communicated to the workforce.
Let's talk about some of the challenges that we see some of our clients facing together when they're trying to implement these transformations, right? When they're trying to bring together this data. I know one that we talk about often, we've talked about already a bit today, is integrations, as well as the data that flows through those integrations as being the Achilles heel for our clients, that often they underestimate the complexity as well as the sheer proliferation of their product data and their asset data throughout their organizations, and how many people really touch and modify and update that data in real time. And I know that when we talk about your Siemens Accelerator products, right, and all of the product suites that go along with that, whether that's a PLM-based system or others, we talk about digitally stitching together those interfaces and those data points in order to create that digital first mindset. But that in and of itself has been really tricky for our clients because it is a completely different way of thinking.
Well, I think we've all heard that the phrase that culture will devour any strategy. And so there really is a balancing act between the investments we need to make in integration, bring all this federated data together, but then also making sure that the organization is responsive to that, right? And so as you go through and you're looking at your integration strategy, you're going to naturally change. You may retire, sources of data that you've long used. Is there a way to automate some of these integrations? It's always exciting to baseline with customers where they sit, and then look at where they can be in an ideal state and the roadmap to get there, and working with Deloitte to actually make that roadmap thing come to life. And here's the exciting thing about integrations. So, in the past, I've looked at the challenges we've had with, say, like planning and scheduling, and integrating that with ERP, and integrating that with work work order systems in the field, like your computerized maintenance management systems. And it's been a real challenge. Now with investments in things like knowledge graphs and AI, I'm really excited at how effective that's going to be in being able to pull that data together and create the taxonomies and the ontologies on demand that we've always long sought, where a persona can, a person in their role can look specifically at the data, the same data that anybody else would look at, but have it represented in a way that's meaningful to them in a semantic manner. That is unbelievable, the power that's coming at it. But whatever data you're feeding into that, is that data well orchestrated and traceable? There's an analysis of the organization and the culture and the way in which we're gathering that data and connecting that data. We first have to have a roadmap around that.
Absolutely. And I find that, as you do, and we've had this conversation several times, that that's where our clients are underestimating
yes.
the level of effort associated with really cleansing and starting to transform that data. I mean, if we think about the proliferation, like I was mentioning, how many systems it's in, but then also that legacy M&A build that we were talking about earlier, that it might be in different federated systems, there is a significant amount of effort that is required. And they want to go, our clients often directly want to go to ML or AI instead of focusing on that data first.
That's right.
And so if we actually invest, and it sometimes takes months, right? Or maybe even more than months, it could take a year or two to really start working on that foundational data footprint. It helps serve them in the long run in that overall digital transformation that they're looking for.
And when you talk about transformation, I'm sure you could go and search and find headlines of where there's been, failed deployments, things like that. But your focus on organizational change management, that becomes the underpinning to success. And it reminds me, you look back, we're all products of our experiences. So one of my experiences was to build a large program management office for a very large energy firm. This is many years ago. The reason why was we couldn't get our arms around why account managers and project managers and program managers all had different perceptions on the reality of the success or failure, or let's say, were we behind schedule, were we ahead of schedule, were we over budget, were we under budget? We couldn't get a straight story. So we put together a program management office to really get all that together. And while we got all of our data cleaned up and we finally got a unified story, it still wasn't the success it could have been until we put our people out in the field. So one of the interesting lessons from my own experience was, while you want to cleanse and centralize data, in a sense, you're not always centralized, it's federated, but you get the sense of how do I bring data together? What you also have to do is, but how do I deploy people? Because relationships are built in the field while you're centralizing data for analysis and to drive better performance. And so it's always a balancing act between disaggregating relationships while you're aggregating data. And I couldn't be more excited to work with Deloitte on exactly that right there. How do we address that with our potential customers?
Absolutely. No, we're excited as well to continue our work together and also help our clients become good stewards of that data, right? And that information and that transformation out in the field. I know that one thing that we have also spoken about that is a challenge in industry is that our industry, for very, very good reason, has been very risk averse. Right?
Oh, yes.
And that dies hard in us, right?
Yes.
Because there's safety measures, there's risk.
Well, once the machine is on, why do I want to turn it off? Right?
Exactly, right? We want to get that continuous flow. We want to make sure that our production is a safe environment for all around it. But that risk-averse nature sometimes puts us in a position where it's harder to change.
Right.
And so to your point, that change management, that business transformation process is crucial. And getting everyone to step out of that comfort zone. I mean, the reality is, if we're really honest with each other, the industry is still putting together the pieces of what does the new version of our asset-intensive future industries look like. We don't have all the answers yet. We've taken our learnings from discrete industry and started to adapt them to the process industry. We've brought all of our safety and our learning and our process engineering over the years, but we're still putting together what that perfect picture looks like for our clients. And so being comfortable with the unknown and being comfortable to change has been a struggle for understandable reasons for many of our clients. So it's well pointed out that you can send stewards out to help sort of make others comfortable and be champions of that change.
Well, and you make a great point, right? Risk averse. So, but there's the law of unintended consequences. So, yes, we're risk averse in adopting new methodologies, new technologies, because if it's not broken, why fix it, right? Was the perception. But here's the challenge. The next generation comes along, they want excitement, right? They want, to your point earlier, their expectations from their consumer experiences haven't necessarily translated to what their industrial experience would be. A case in point, I was talking to a construction company in Texas about, I guess, 18 months ago, and they had pointed out, we are struggling to recruit young men and women to come in and be a part of our construction company because they just don't see us as this kind of Silicon Valley-esque company. So they've actually had to invest just in the experience, the digital experience that they're going to have in the field and conducting their work. I mean, you don't want to hand them a Fortran card. You have to be a little extreme in my example. You want to be able to bring them into something that meets their expectations of how they're going to gather data, conduct their job, provide analytics, whatever the role is. It has to be fully digitalized. That's not just the expectation. It has to happen or you're not going to attract the talent.
Yes, absolutely. And not only attract the talent, but also retain your customers. I mean,
Exactly.
The reality is our customers now want to know, they want the right product at the right place at the right time, as we all say, it's cliche, but you truly can't get there with where the industry is today. It takes too long. It's taking some of my clients 6 months plus to bring new products to market, mainly because it takes them forever to scale.
Right.
And so we have to start working together and bringing these digitization journeys and these learnings to, yes, recruit new talent as well as to keep our customers happy.
And to your point about the customers, the pace of innovation, the expectation that anybody is just going to have a single product and it's just going to be, that's all that goes out the door. I mean, we are seeing the level of customization and collapsing that timeline around customization is so powerful. So you're 100%, you're right. Our customers have to be able to step up to that.
And not only collapsing that timeline, but our customers expect uniqueness, right? Because oftentimes they can get configurable or configured product or semi-custom product on a much quicker time frame. And so, yeah, our clients are not just manufacturing, commodity. Most of them aren't manufacturing commodity products anymore in a very small portfolio. They have these large, complex product portfolios with lots of different formulations that need to be managed.
Well, so. and you see, I was actually talking to a company just the other day that's one of our customers, and they are looking to revolutionize pressure vessels and pressure systems. Now, you would think, well, how exciting is that? But they have come up with ways to robotically create chemical reactors with more effective heat transfer. Now, here's the exciting thing. Not only do they deliver new IP with their assets configured on demand to whatever the processes might be with chemical customers, but the beauty is they deliver it with a digital twin. So the expectation now is you're going to provide me a physical asset, but you're going to provide the physical twin with it, so that when I now have a much larger ecosystem of the entire digital twin of the system, I, as the end customer, will be able to tweak and calibrate on demand with the varying inputs I'm going to be getting, because inputs are always going to have variability. The level of innovation and expectation in that supply chain on pressure vessels has to closely mimic the transparency and traceability you see with our consumer experience.
And our clients are getting to the point where they are able to actually run the simulations and the testing and the validations on those digital twins that they weren't able to 20 years ago, whether that be on a fuel or a lubricant or on a engine twin, for example, or whether that be on a molecule that they're testing. It's a really exciting place that we're at. And I know that next time that we're together, we're going to dive into that golden triangle, as we call it, right? So in that golden triangle, we've got product, customer, and asset data. So we will double click, if you will, on some of those product challenges that we're seeing next time. So that'll be really exciting, I think, to chat about
I'm looking
further.
forward to that conversation.
John, thank you again for sitting down with me and talking through some of the challenges that our clients in the asset-intensive industries are facing. Always look forward to having you.
And it's always a pleasure to be with you, Brittany.